Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker, and going back into the history, or if you're new to teas and you associate teas with things like English breakfast, there's something to be understood behind the teas that English breakfast is a blend, and understanding the teas behind that blend. The black tea that we have that we're looking at today is a Chinese tea. Chinese black tea, Chinese black teas are or were a traditional component in many type of English breakfast teas, and so understanding the parts helps you kind of appreciate the whole as well. So let's go ahead and get this tea started and find out. In the process, we'll find out a little bit about which components of this tea really enhance and bring out the qualities of other teas. So especially blended teas. So got out my kettle, water's been brought to a boil. This is a black tea. It can tolerate usually higher temperatures than other types of tea. Got out my gaiwan and my spoon, and I'm going to scoop in enough of this tea. But see, it's hanging over the sides of my teaspoon here, and that's really going to cover the bottom, say like usual inch to inch and a half diameter of the bottom of my gaiwan. Let me cover that, close that up for just a moment, and come back and talk a little about the tea, because I do want to get this steeped and started. Pour slowly enough and kind of move it around so that each leaf doesn't get swept under the surface of the water. You don't have one partially dry leaf floating on top of that. So that looks good. And my lid, when I put that on, I'm going to have a little bit of water resting out above the outer rim of the lid that I've put on there. So that will kind of help create a seal. Now, while that's steeping, let me introduce this tea. This is from ChinaChaDao. It's an eBay company, and yeah, you have to be careful with some eBay companies, but ChinaChaDao and Jerry, from what I've seen, and you can go back and look at some previous reviews, they've done a pretty good job of sourcing teas. They go ahead and tell you where they get their teas. I mean, this is from a company that is based in China, so it's not as if it's just some fly-by-night type of farmer who is trying to sell their own tea necessarily. This is, let me get this name right, the Mingui, and it's a TanYangGongFu tea, or sometimes you may hear the Tanyang pronounced as Panyang Songo, which is more of the Panyang Songo is more of the regional dialect, so it can become from that TAN of the Mandarin pronunciation become kind of a PAN. So that's maybe something to look at. Gongfu then becomes Songo in dialects. So that's something to consider keep in mind if you want to compare it to other teas. 150 grams currently available for $24.99, so just under $25. This is from the Guishan Mountain in Fu'an County of Fujian Province, which is the traditional region and home. Actually, if you look at this tin, and if you look at online as well, you'll find that they're saying that this tea, although they don't really specifically say this kind of tea or a tea from this specific company, was the gold prize winner in the Panama International Exhibition of 1915. So you could generally say that Panyang Songo or TanYangGongFu tea has been recognized well over nearly 100 years now. Okay, so this was a 2010 harvest. I know that information as well. So let's go ahead and I'm going to open up this tea and talk a little bit about it. First off, I want to get a smell of the dry leaf here. Now, talking again about English breakfast, there are just some kind of breakfast smells about this tea. There's a raisin smell combined with that raisin bran. It's that flake that's with the raisins. It's got a little bit of a sweet smell, a little bit of like a sweet wheat type of smell to it, sweet grains. a little, possibly a little bit of a nutty component there. So it's just that it's just raisin bran. This was something that would just seem to enhance that raisin bran type of taste and smell in a breakfast experience. Now, looking at these leaves, the other things that I do want to note is that they are small, thin, wiry. You're getting that a lot of that seal brown type of color. On the other, and in addition, I should say, you're getting quite a bit of golden needle or golden tips here. So you do see some fuzzy tips here. You see that golden color, and you know, just at a glance, I'm going to say that this makes up roughly 10-15% of the total leaf population, you would say, in this sample here. So yeah, it's got a good blend, a good mix of those golden needles in there. Okay, they, like I said, smaller, look like more delicate leaf size portions, or leaf size, leaf grade there. So good sign there so far. Let's go be ready to pour now. I'm going to get out my pitcher here, angle my lid over to the side just a bit, and get ready to pour here. A few leaves slip through, but that's fine. That's one of the advantages of having a pitcher like this, is that those leaves will generally sit at the bottom, and you can pour slowly enough that they don't transfer to your cup. Now, give this a smell and talk a little about this wet leaf. One more time. Initially, what hit me was there's a kind of there's a cocoa powder type smell. There's something kind of sweet, something kind of chocolatey in there. So there was this sensation that if I'd close my eyes, I might think that there's some hot chocolate in this. As it cools, it still remains sweet. A little bit more of that raisin note starts to pick up. So it's, like I said, still remains sweet. Molasses, raisin, a little bit of chocolate in there. So it just has almost a dessert type of component to it. Looking at these leaves, they've become fairly uniform in color. They don't really unfurl that much. You're getting little tightly rolled portions here. They're not necessarily full leaves either, leaf sections in many cases. So let me just pull out a few. Yeah, you may get something that resembles a stem here and there. I'm trying to find, yes, there are, like I said, there are tips, or at least the upper tippy portion of a leaf, but then again, you're also getting, like here's an example of a tip there as well. That's nearly complete. There's a small nick torn out of it, but that's a full-size tippy-looking leaf there. That's you kind of have to, you can gently unfurl that to see a little bit more of that leaf there. Okay, so not a lot to really dig into and examine that closely. Not a lot to see in that wet leaf. So moving on then, talking about this liquor. Got a nice color to it. Good, it's good deep. It's not really. It's beyond honey. It's more more reddish, more purple than say a copper type color. So it's a nice standard, reddish brown that you often see with black teas. Okay. Pouring it and looking down through it. Again, a nice amber reddish type color still coming out, and good brightness, good clarity as you look down through it. None of it really looks dull or flat by any means. Raisin notes and aromas coming out in the smell. So when you get an English breakfast, oftentimes what you find is the tastes come from a tea like this. and the briskness, the stringency, the punch come from the other teas that were blended in. And that's what you get here. You get a sweet brown sugar, raisiny type component here. It's got a moderate medium type of broth, so it feels like a sweet sweet juicy type watered down honey type of coating. Raisin squeezings slathered over your tongue. So it's got that sense to it. What remains in the back of the throat and the aftertaste, still that kind of a caramel type sweetness there, combined with a little bit of that raisin molasses type aftertaste. That it stays back there. It's that brown sugar baked bean type of sweetness there. It doesn't have any bitterness to it. It doesn't have astringency really. It's not overly powerful. It's got a moderate level, and it just kind of stays and stays and stays, and so it feels like every moment feels like you've just swallowed that brown sugar raisin sweetness, and it's still in there. Okay. I mean, I still pick up more of this, and actually as it cools now, it's getting a little more of a chocolatey type note. That's coming out more. That's more of a cocoa powder type chocolate element. Less of the milky aspect of it, less of the cocoa buttery aspect. It's more of a thin, a lighter chocolatey powder type aspect. So, looking at this tea as a whole, this is the kind that you see why this tea was used to make English breakfast and was blended, but you also see why higher quality like this one doesn't need to be blended. It stands finely on its own. It's a great addition to breakfast or any other time of day, and it's not harsh. It's a smooth sipping, enjoyable tea with good characteristics. A lot of times black teas don't have its own characteristic. Its characteristic is puckery and its strength, but this one's in its mellowness and its sweetness and its aftertaste. So I have to give this tea a 91. It's got pleasant aromas, pleasant feel, and pleasant aftertaste. So come back to Walker Tea Review to learn about appreciating this tea and others.